Let's bring in Mick Mulroy, ABC News national security and defense analyst. He's also a retired U.S. Marine, retired CIA, and worked as a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense in President Trump's first term. And also with us, ABC News contributor, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Doug Lute, who served in the White House and later as U.S. Ambassador to NATO. Mick, I'd like to start with you if we could here. So some are already raising questions about the legality of this military campaign and the capture of Maduro and his wife. What evidence has the administration laid out to justify this response?
So certainly there is some questions both internally under U.S. law and externally under international law from both parties in the United States and both adversaries and allies overseas. But I do think the administration is going to point to the fact that Maduro is indicted. And essentially this was a law enforcement operation, much like the operation back in the 90s for Manuel Noriega in Panama, who was brought back to the United States and prosecuted and incarcerated. So I think that is where they're going to stand on the legality of this, but certainly there's still going to be some questions to that.
Yeah, especially law enforcement, but with special forces, Delta Force involved here. General Lute, let's bring you in. What can you tell us about what likely went into the planning and execution of this operation?
Well, all such military operations and the planning for these operations begins at the objective. And that is at the precise location of Maduro himself, the sorts of security surrounding him, and so forth. So I think first and foremost, the success of this operation from a military perspective points to the fact that we had very good, solid, reliable intelligence. And then the planning from there just proceeds backwards, all the way to the point from the launch points to the objective and back again.
And Mick, so many questions about the transition of power here. Who's going to run the government? Could U.S. troops potentially be involved to protect who the next leader may be? What do we know about that and what could come next?
Well, it's plausible. I mean, the president's announced that there was a covert action program by the CIA in Venezuela. That likely helped produce the outcome today, both preparation of the battle space, so to speak, and certainly the intelligence that General Lute just referenced that really helped this exceptionally professional operation to be carried out. But the next phase is really the end game. The regime is still in place. So Maduro is gone, but the remnants of the regime is still in place, and that could still be very problematic to the United States, the whole reason why this operation was launched in the first place. So how do we transition to an administration that's legitimately elected and is more friendly to the United States and less friendly to, say, Russia, China, and Iran? That is a big question, and I think that's what comes after this. We'll just have to see how it plays out, but I think the United States is still going to be looking at this as a hostile regime until that occurs.
Yeah, and what kind of long-term commitment that could end up being. General Lute, back to you here. We know the administration has accused President Maduro of narco-terrorism, but why this recent escalation with Venezuela?
Well, I think this points very much to the recently published national security strategy by the by the Trump administration, and which for the first time in decades placed a fresh focus on U.S. interests in the Western Hemisphere. So clearly, Venezuela presents one of the big security challenges in our hemisphere, and this military action, alongside the strikes on the so-called narco-terrorist boats in and around the Caribbean, points to the fact that the administration is increasingly focused here at home and in our hemisphere.
Dozens of strikes on those boats, more than 100 people killed. General Lute, Mick Mulroy, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.